And I think about that a lot in that I don't think I'm a really amazing lecturer. I think a lot more about designing my courses so that everybody has a chance to learn some things, not just the people who are able to sit there and listen.
You just heard Alison Melley from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. Garth interviewed Alison for episode number 168 of Psych Sessions, Conversations About Teaching and Stuff. Stay tuned for so much more.
Psych Sessions is sponsored by APA Publishing. The American Psychological Association offers valuable resources to better help you help your students, as well as to enrich your professional life. Visit apa.org/pubs and enter discount code APAPOD20, that's all caps, at checkout to receive 20% off all APA books and videos that are available online. APA Books publishes critically acclaimed and award-winning books developed by experts to support researchers and students. APA videos, designed for clinical training and continued education, present distinguished psychologists demonstrating specific approaches to a wide range of patient problems. Again, visit apa.org/pubs and enter discount code APAPOD20 at checkout to receive 20% off all APA books and videos available online. The Psych Sessions podcast is sponsored by STP. That is the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. That's APA Division 2. You can find them at teachpsych.org. The views or product endorsements expressed do not represent the views, support, or endorsements of STP. Psych Sessions is so grateful to have STP as a long-term supporter. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here today with, a recent friend, I would say, Dr. Alison Melley from George Mason University. Welcome to Psych Sessions, Alison.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and you know what? I do enough of these episodes and interviews that when I hear somebody who has like pretty decent sound quality, I notice it right away. And so what is that you're speaking into? Is it an audio Vox? What's the brand?
Samson. It's a Samson.
A Samson. Is that that's an Amazon special?
Yeah, I did as much research as I could with the budget that I was allowed to spend.
Yeah. So what does a mic like that cost?
It was probably like $60. It wasn't a lot. Maybe a little more. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually prefer what you've got there to. So a lot of people will do those kind of snowball microphones, like the Yeti or whatever. And this is better sound quality.
Oh, that's good to know. Because that was actually one of the things that I had looked into. And they said it was, pretty good for the price point. And I noticed a difference because I work in a lot of different spaces. And if I don't have this with me, I really don't like to do a recording, for an online course. So, because I can tell the difference when I hear it.
Yeah. So, because otherwise you're just talking into your computer speaker or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the audio quality is as good as it is as far as it is from your face right now, but that's good. You don't have to.
Yeah, I was wondering if I should move it closer.
No, it's fine. It's good. Okay. It's really good. I'm just so excited that you went ahead and purchased this. And for you, it was a pedagogical decision. Is that right?
Yeah. I was teaching live classes on Zoom. I was doing a lot of recording. I teach a lot. I'm a teaching faculty, so I have a lot of classes and a lot of students. And I struggle on Zoom because when I hear that bad audio quality, it's like physically painful. I have a really hard time with it. I actually will often nowadays I'll turn on the captioning because now you can almost always do the live captioning. And if I can turn that on and turn off the sound, I'll do that so that I don't get a headache if I have to be on Zoom.
Yeah, I
So-
actually think that it is physically painful. There are certain frequencies that sound engineers work to take out of audio. And I think that a friend who is in the industry down in Los Angeles recently told me that the way that microphones, like for your iPhone or Samsung or whatever, the ones that come with the phone that you plug in, those are meant to cut through everything. They are not meant to give you nice audio. They're meant to pick up voice through everything. And so it's very acute. It's like not very, it's kind of nasty. And I really think that you chose the right word, which is I think it can physically hurt. At least for me, it goes like, it's pain. Those frequencies are painful. And then it's like emotionally irritable to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I don't always get a headache, but I just tell people I get a headache from Zoom noises because sometimes I just have to not be on Zoom.
Of course. So last time I saw you, we were in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
And now I find you in Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Fairfax, Virginia. Yeah.
And do you live and work in Fairfax, Virginia?
No, sadly.
Okay.
Not sadly, but this is where I am now today. But I live in Maryland, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm so far. I'm so unfamiliar with that area. Talk to me about how far is your commute in and all that.
Well, if there's no traffic, it's about 45 minutes, and I park far away so I can walk in. So I get a good 20 to 30 minute walk. So my commute is longer, because of that walk. But going home, sometimes it could be like an hour and a half.
Okay.
Because I'm driving, I have to go to the DC Beltway. And so it's DC traffic, rush hour. So I try to plan my day so that I'm either leaving after that or before that. It doesn't always work. And I don't always come in. I'm not always in the office. So
okay. So and has that changed pre-pandemic to post-pandemic or?
Yeah, my story is so all over the place, but I got here in fall 2019. Took the job with the agreement that I did not have to come in more than 3 days a week, and sometimes 2. And then pandemic, so then I couldn't anyway. And then, but I still came in anyway because I have a very busy house. So sometimes came here to use my office, and then so it depends. I have pretty good control over my schedule. So I tried coming in 4 days this past semester.
Wow.
And I will never do that again. It was just too much time out of my week.
So you've been there you got there right before the pandemic happened. Yeah. So we'll backtrack in a bit and figure out where you came from and all that. But George Mason, it's a big psychology department, right?
Yeah. And I meant to look up so I had the numbers because I know you always ask people. I know our faculty are around 45 or something like that.
Wow.
But the numbers of majors, I never have that off the top of my head.
Those are Eric questions, numbers of majors and stuff. You're stuck with me. I'm not interested in that.
I don't usually carry those things around.
Okay. So we'll get back there now. But you and I saw each other in Pittsburgh, and you did the Top Inc. Teaching of Psychology Incubator, and then we had a quick chat afterwards. But I'm sure it was just since that time you had to finish up a semester, and then but I wanted to check in with you. How are things going on your OER project?
Good. I keep Top Inc. in mind because it's intended to be a project that is useful to people, not just me, right? So, and that was my intention starting it. I get carried away with it sometimes because my graduate students are contributing, and it's been a lot of fun. We're trying to bring our department research specifically into a product for students to be reading. So I'm taking other OER material and putting it all together into a press book, but I'm also adding content. And so anyway, we're trying to make it so that it does have actual, really relevant, very current research in it. We have a lot of IO people here. We have a lot of human factors people, and we have some people doing some really interesting developmental work. So just trying to get them, their stuff out there to our students, right? But I think it's a model that could be used anywhere. Like the pieces where we're putting that could be used again anywhere. And then it could also be used as a model for how to do that.
Hi folks, this is Garth, and I want to tell you about a publisher who might be a little new to psychology, but who has been doing high quality work in creating affordable and innovative textbooks for nearly 20 years. And they've got a great name. This is Sumo Learning, that's SOOMO. And I first met them when they came out to TIP Northwest in 2022, and I gotta tell you, our attendees were so impressed with what they learned about Sumo's book and its mission. So the book is called Psychology in the Real World by author Jennifer Harper, and it focuses on psychology's big ideas. It's up to date with everything related to APA's Introductory Psychology Initiative, and it's peer-reviewed. And it includes high-quality, innovative supplements. Even with all that, it encourages student learning along the way, from engaging study questions to its affordability. It's really got everything that you and your students want in a textbook, so check it out. Go to sumolearning.com. That's SOOMO learning.com and check out Psychology in the Real World.
Interesting. So whenever I'm doing a project, and I think we went through this question, but I don't remember your answer to it. But whenever you take on a project or even starting on some research, you're kind of thinking to yourself, where's the hole? What like hole am I filling here? Can I ask, like, as a non-OER person, why is there room for another OER textbook? And I know there's not many out there, and like Lumen does it, right? And then NOBA does one. There's probably a handful of others. Yeah. What do you think?
And I'm using both, but I've always used them. In recent years, I've used mostly NOBA. But the way that NOBA is you can pick a bunch of readings, and I would pull it. Like, I don't use their like pre-compiled book. I pull the readings and I put them in my units, and, I switch them out periodically, and, students like them, they're readable, but some more than others. And for the way that I approach the course isn't that like, let's take a giant textbook and, teach everything that's in it. So I feel like I just like having the pick and choose nature of the OERs, right? But I also wanted to make something that was like, I like the way Lumen has it's the OpenStax base, and they have all these interactive questions in it. And I like that, but it wasn't exactly like the way that I wanted it to be for the students with the content. So I wanted to just put it all together the way I wanted it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just like the malleability of having my own thing and not having to be like, okay, read these pages. They bought a different version, so I can't tell them which pages to read, like that kind of thing. So,
but your ultimate plan is to take this and let other people use it, right?
Exactly. And also because I use all the Intro Psych Initiative stuff with the themes and all of that, there really isn't anything out there yet. I mean, OpenStax has done a pretty good job of incorporating some of it, but I don't know that they didn't really dive in and digest all of it. They sort of slapped some stuff in there, it seems. I mean, I don't really know, honestly, I'm not really sure. But when I look at it, it seems like they just sort of tried to adapt it a little bit to fit the new recommendations. So I was trying to do it myself just to make it for myself. And then I said, if I'm going to put all this work in, I might as well do it and send it out, like let other people use it too.
Well, that was my question is,
right.
So when you see the IPI, and I think themes are probably one of the things that, or whatever, the IPI outcomes in general, how have you worked them into your curriculum at this point? Because I think you represent a lot of people who are trying to, think about that right now.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it since early. Like I was one of the people who kind of signed up early to pilot different things. And
Yep.
so I've been trying to just use it for a long time. But I've done a few different things. And one is that I tried sort of having a unit for each theme. But then I found that because they are overarching themes, they kind of fit in every unit, so I would always, so then I would have a few themes per unit. And then then another time I tried asking students, which themes do you think are relevant? And so we would kind of go from there. Then this past year, I said, I'm going to choose the main theme and use that one through the entire year or entire semester. And that was the perception one, the imperfect personal lens. Yeah. And so I kind of threaded that through the whole semester. And I still taught the other ones as they kind of came up and made sense. And I had students kind of go through them and pick one for a project they were doing. But I didn't emphasize all of them. And I kind of like doing it that way a little bit better. I feel like they got a better handle on it. It was kind of like the equivalent of taking the 16 chapters of an intro psych book and whittling it down to 5, So
yeah.
It was better.
Yeah. So just as personal interest, what were some of your favorite things with that, imperfect personal lens theme? What were some of your favorite things that you did to get that across to students? Or was it more implicit in the way you kind of just discussed it with them? Did you have them read anything or do any specific assignments related to that?
Oh, gosh.
And I know I'm putting you on the spot.
We're in between semesters, so I'm sort of planning, but my head's not in that course right now.
Yep.
But, I use it to talk about bias. So bias in thinking and judgment, and kind of how we bring and even like it goes into development, because you think about whatever you have experienced in your life and whatever you have learned in your life, you bring to a situation, and then that is your lens. Mm-hmm. And then whatever you're able to take in is what you then can take going forward, and you can only take in so much, right? And then our judgments of a situation, our decision making. So a lot of it is more, and these are giant classes. So I do some demos, but I don't do as many as I used to in smaller classes. And then then I use it in like actually sensation perception, which I didn't used to teach before I got here. And then they told me I really should do it in this department, so that I really needed to get into sensation perception. And that's an easier place to be like, to actually talk about how we perceive things differently, when you talk about illusions and things like that. So yeah.
Well, that's helpful. It's one of my favorite themes to talk with my students about. And so I'm on sabbatical right now, and I'm trying to think about my intro course. And so, I was recently reading a book called The Righteous Mind by moral psychologist Jonathan, I think it's Haidt. And that outcome, or that theme, I should say, is so in his work of the way that we construct moral reality, right? And that it happens from our intuitions first. So and you can see this politically or whatever, when you appeal to people's emotions, and then their logical brain comes afterwards and tries to make sense of how you're already feeling, right? Yes. So it's this whole idea of, you cannot appeal to people's logic very easily, but if you can get them emotionally, I think the thing to be aware of is that we are manipulated emotionally in so many ways. Yeah. Yes.
And that's where it gets really, really interesting, right? When you start digging into things like how capitalism can, manipulate us, right? And absolutely. And how in politics, I have one of my grad student TAs this year came and talked about political psychology, which I didn't really know much about. And students were just riveted. And that was a great place to talk about the themes.
Interesting.
And then the other place I talk, when you talk about diagnosis and treatment, and you talk about reframing and how even just the first time you tell a story to somebody about something that happened, the way that you tell that story is how you remember it.
That's right.
Right. And you can change the way you tell a story so that your emotional attachment to that story is different. And, so anyway, it's really cool. They get really into it.
We'll be right back.
With this powerful course platform, Achieve, Macmillan Learning makes it easier than ever to integrate Macmillan Learning's acclaimed digital content into your course. Interactive ebooks, learning curve adaptive quizzing, additional assessments, immersive learning activities, an extraordinary video collection, and much more. And Macmillan is always here to help you confront today's toughest teaching challenges. For example, are you tired of students putting more work into cheating than studying? Our recently published Educator's Guide to Academic Integrity is full of ideas for using Achieve to take cheating off the table. The guide is available for free at macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions. Achieve for Psychology, engaging every student, supporting every instructor, setting the new standard for teaching and learning.
So
That's wild. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would intuit that, like, just from what I've read, that what you just said is true, but you're saying there was actually research done where they did this, right? And I'm not going to put you on the spot. You mean you don't have that reference?
Yeah, I don't. And that's the thing. I'm not good. I don't have things off the top of my head usually.
Me either.
I go in prepared if I'm teaching to a class, but I can't just pull it out of my head.
No, I know. But these are the studies that I think are so fascinating to students. The other thing that he said in that book is that by his analysis and his kind of lifelong work, he thinks that, I think it's funny in our day and age, not funny, really sad actually, that Democrats appeal to kind of the three of the six major moral psychology pillars, whereas conservatives have figured out how to hit all six of kind of humanity's moral psychology pillars. And so anyway, for anybody who's interested, it got a little bit into like evolutionary psychology, and I kind of get lost on some of that. But anyways, okay, so getting back to it, are you happy right now with your process and your, like, are you, I know you said you're working on some other things, but we're talking about this kind of intro psych OER book. How long is this project going to take you think? When will we have something to read?
It's a good question. This is what I do. I dive into things and I don't really know what I'm getting into, but I just dive in thinking I can do this thing. Right. And so I have one student working. She's really into it. So that's helpful. And what I'm going to do actually is right now I have something that I'm going to start using now with my class. But it's definitely not ready to be used with anybody else. So I figure we're going to spend the summer tweaking it. And I would like to have something by the end of this year to be able to say to people, hey, this is what we have and feel free to use it.
And where would you host this? Would you host it like the book through the university?
Well, I have a Pressbooks account which is through the school. It's like it's Viva, which I can't even tell you what it is, but it's a Virginia consortium that holds some of these accounts. So, but I can publish the Pressbooks and that is then free to anybody who wants to use it. They wouldn't be able to edit it, but they could copy it and then edit it themselves.
Okay. How do places like that who host your book or distribute it or whatever, how do they make money? Are they doing this for a lot of people?
Yeah, good question. So Pressbooks used to be free and they're no longer free.
Okay.
So like I used to be able to write a book on Pressbooks and it was just free to send out, right? But now it's a different model, and because it's an institutional license, so they pay for it and they support OER. And I mean, I'm actually hoping to apply for a grant through this OER foundation here to do it, to help with it. But yeah, so they make money from the institutional licenses, and people who pay for their own, like if people want to publish on their own, they can pay for a license that way.
And what is the benefit for folks who are listening to this, like me, who didn't even know about Pressbooks? What's the benefit to publish with them rather than to do it on your own, on your website, through your institution? What benefit is there?
Yeah, good question. It's one of those things that I don't know that there's a really good answer. I think there's lots of ways to do things, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is how I had spoken with, oh my gosh, it's terrible. I should know her name. Karina, starts with an M. She's at Baylor. She's an STP member. And so this summer, I'm finding her name.
Karina Ann Wasco? Nope.
No, it's Malavanti.
Okay.
So she took the Lumen OpenStax and some of the NOVA. So she's kind of been doing the same thing for her own courses. And she wrote up some intros with some of the themes from from the Industrious initiative, and asked me to help this past summer with kind of coming up with some examples and things like that for her book, right? And so I liked that platform that she had hers on. And so then I started researching it, found out it was all free to use. And then all of a sudden it wasn't free to use. But then I found out that our institution has it, just like other things I use because my institution has a license. That's why I use it. You know, it's a nice platform. The editing is super easy. It's really easy to pull in other things from other places, PDFs, and from the Lumen platform. Okay. So it's
nice. Yeah. And a couple things. I kind of get a sense that you're doing what Drew Christopher was just interviewed by Eric. We just released that a little while ago, and he said that when he wrote his stats book, that he got some advice from someone who just said, well, you just take all your notes for your stats class and then you write a book from your notes because you've been kind of working at this. But it sounds kind of like that's what you and maybe Karina as well have done, is you're putting together your thing and you're like, I put so much work into this. I think this could be helpful for other people. And so seems to be the way. Yeah. I also like that. Now, you met Karina through STP, is that right?
Yes. And it was actually through we did like a book club to read the book. The
IPI book.
Initiative book, right? Yeah. Yes. So and that was all through APA, where they kind of split us into groups and we had a week or a monthly meeting. And
yeah. What was that like? We didn't get a ton of feedback about how that went for people, but how was it?
Yeah, it was good. It was good to meet some other people who I've stayed in touch with and seen in other places. And we kind of, sometimes it was just chatting, teaching, talking about general kind of stuff. Right. And other times it was more, we talked more specifically about what was in the book. So it was just another way to build community, Well,
the thing about that book is that it's so not prescriptive. And so it probably does lend itself more to teaching conversations that are a few steps removed than, okay. So cool. That's great. Well, what are you involved in right now? I see your name pop up every once in a while. In fact, actually, this will probably come out after Coast to Coast. So, but you are doing you were hand selected to give a teaching demo for Intro Psych Coast to Coast this January. What was that all about? Do you know what you're giving a talk on?
I do. Well, I was invited because of my talk at Psych 1. Okay. Which was about live captioning in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, can I just give the same talk? And they said, well, that's why you were chosen, because they liked that talk. And so I'm just going to update it with current data from this past semester and some more, just fill it out a little bit more. And then I'm going to do,
So you are kind of like going to regional conferences. What's your area for psych in psychology anyway? Social?
I call myself a generalist because
really?
I was trained clinically, but never really didn't practice at all after internship. And that was in 2003.
Okay.
So I'm a generalist.
You and I are very close. I'm counseling psych till and I probably practiced till like 2008 and then didn't go back after that. So
yeah.
But yeah, okay. So that's your area. So you are firmly in the teaching world then. That's what you do.
Psych Sessions is sponsored by W.W. Norton. Are you looking for more activities to promote scientific literacy? ZAPS 3.0 interactive labs from W.W. Norton are brief, hands-on activities that invite students to actively participate in the process of psychological research and discovery. Utilizing a consistent 5-part framework and incorporating transparent design principles, students experience classic psychological studies like the Stroop effect, false memory, the serial position effect, signal detection, and more. Once they've completed the experiment, students can compare their data with national data and their own classmates, offering the opportunity for rich in-class or online discussions. Bring the science of psychology to life for your students with ZAPS. For Psych Sessions listeners new to ZAPS, you can try it for free the next time you teach. Just go to siegel.wwnorton.com/Psych Sessions. And the folks at WW Norton will even integrate it into your LMS for you. That is Siegel, like the bird, SEAGULL.wwnorton.com/Psych Sessions.
I am firmly in the teaching world. In fact, this job was specifically to train to come here. They needed somebody to build out a teaching practicum for the PhD students.
Okay. So you work with a lot of grad students.
Do that job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then I came and I also said, I love IntroPsych. Can I teach IntroPsych also? And they're like, please do, because nobody wanted to teach it.
Okay. So we're jumping back up. What do you do with grad students? What does a week look like when you're kind of in the middle of the semester?
Well, it's different fall and spring, but in the fall I have, I have 2 cohorts now because I've decided to build something bigger than myself. But I first year TAs work with me in Psych 100 in my large lecture class. And that's first year TAs. And so they just that's sort of less routinized. And so I have meetings with them. But then I have the class for second year PhD students who meet with me once a week it's sort of, the beginning is sort of pedagogy type stuff. And then the second half is prepping their first class because they're going to teach as instructors of record in spring of their second year of PhD.
Okay.
And then spring, like right now, I'm reviewing syllabi and answering questions and kind of getting them ready to, go into their classrooms and figure out the technology and all that stuff. And then in spring, they're teaching and I'm meeting with them in small groups. So I've got 5 small groups that I meet with twice a month to kind of, sometimes I have like a theme of that meeting, like disability services or student support, things like that. But then it's also just a Q&A kind of mentoring, like, I've got this situation, what do I do? And, that kind of stuff.
So you found yourself in this like sweet spot, which is you're teaching teachers.
Yes, I did find myself here. I really like it. Yeah.
That's really cool. And what is the program that these students are in? It's
a PhD, but it's really varied. We've got developmental, it's applied developmental, we've got cognitive behavioral neuroscience, we have IO, human factors, clinical. I think that's all.
And are these students,
and they're going to hate me for it, but
are these students self-selecting for this teaching role gig?
No. And that's actually the real challenge. I have about 20 and a lot of them need to teach for their funding and they have to take my class before they're allowed to teach. So that the motivation varies a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I suspect that would be challenging. Have you won any of those students over to teaching?
Yes. Well,
yay!
I don't know if I won them, but some come in very interested, and more so in the last couple of years, because I think it's because they found out that they can teach here, right? So we're attracting a few more people than we would have otherwise.
Right.
Because a lot of PhD programs, there isn't a lot of teaching, or they're not getting any training in teaching. So this is relatively new that we have a solid support program of teaching. They were teaching 2 classes in the fall of their second year without much support. They had some support, but not much. And so they brought me in because that wasn't going very well.
Yeah, I imagine not. I mean, I lived that. I lived getting a textbook thrown at me and having no teaching experience, right? So, okay. So, this is interesting. Who in our STP kind of community does your kind of equivalent job at other places? Maybe this won't work out, but like, do you know people who are
I reached out to Missy Beers. Missy Beers is the one who really, I mean, she's not doing it anymore, but she was a huge help. And I want to say there's a few other people that I've talked with, but she was really the one that I gathered as much information as I could on my own, but she was super helpful. Janelle
Cavazos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I spoke with her too a few times, but it was actually for intro psych because I heard her on your podcast and I reached out to her because she was literally doing everything I was just trying to do. Like I was developing this model of having the TAs and learning assistants in my undergraduate learning assistants in my class. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's already doing all of these things that I'm dreaming about. And so we talked and it was great because she was a huge help. And actually one of her former undergrads is one of my current TAs.
Nice.
Which is really fun.
Well, and lucky for that student. I mean, the quality of faculty that they
so that's really fun. And then, when she started doing more with grad students, she reached out to me and I was able to send her my stuff. So that was helpful, So I know she's doing some of that work as well.
Isn't it so cool to be part of this community where people are just like they'll give you their stuff, where you just say, hey, can I have your stuff? And they say, yeah, here's my stuff.
It's incredible. And this is why I want to create an OER that I'm going to give out to other people, and why, whenever I develop an assignment, I'll, try to stick it in Regan's hub or somewhere, or jump into a teaching conference and try to, send things out. And I probably don't do it as much as I would like to do it. I wish I had more time to kind of make things, prettier and more with better explanations and all that stuff. So I could just give it all away, because that's the only reason I can do what I do, is because of STP and all the people who are so generous.
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you been part of STP for?
Well,
ballpark.
I started teaching 2012.
Okay.
And was lost for a little while, and then found STP and was unlost. So not long after that was when I probably officially joined. And then when I started doing started kind of joining stuff, I probably did a lot more once the pandemic hit, just because it was more accessible. But I went to NITOP right before pandemic, 2020. And I went to Psych 1 the summer before that. And so right around that year.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Was when I really started getting, that's when I started doing things at conferences and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what are you involved in now? Have you been doing task forces? Are you on any committees? What's
I did a task force. I think I did 2 task forces. I did one, it was a pandemic pedagogy kind of one. I started on another, but then that fizzled. So, and then I'm on the ACT steering committee now.
Yep.
And I'm signed up to review the online teaching resources. I haven't gotten anything recently, so I don't know if I'm still on the list, but I did review some of those.
Well, whoever the new resource person is, if you're listening, because by that time it should be, I think, well, either Bill or somebody else. They can listen to this and reach out to you. Well, that's cool. I mean, I've seen your name pop up more and more, and then I was like, oh, she's coming to our conference. That's great, coast to coast. So that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. So, okay, so let's go back to where things started for you. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay, so you're just East Coast through and through.
Yeah. Yep.
And were you a good student growing up? I have a feeling yes.
I was a good student, but I wasn't a good student. Like, I was smart. So I could listen to stuff that I was interested in, and I could take a test. But I didn't work really hard. So, and that's like, we could say a lot about that, but I think about that a lot.
I also didn't work very hard, but I also wasn't that smart. So,
well, I mean, I just say I was smart because that's like, how else would I get through?
Well, that's exactly. Yeah, no, I'm kidding, of course.
But I also because the thing is, I'm also was an adult diagnosed ADHD. And when I look back at my schooling, I think if I had known what was going on in my brain, school would have been a lot better for me.
Oh, interesting. So, okay. So now I'm thinking of a previous conversation you and I had about when we were doing Top Inc. and there's conversations going on all over the place. I assumed that wasn't your kind of like the best place for you, because we were talking about it, because maybe you were more introverted or something. But also, this is another layer. It's probably very hard to concentrate.
Yeah, I had a lot. That was a tough, and that, it's one of those things, like, I always think I'm going to be okay in a situation like that. And sometimes I am, if people are quiet when we're supposed to be thinking. Yeah. But because people were talking when we were supposed to be thinking, that didn't work well for me.
Well, you know what? I will make a note of it for next time for sure. Yeah. Because, they're just art, when you design something, you often think about yourself and the way that you would do something. Right. And for me, it's like, let's just talk about everything.
Well, and I love talking about things. Yeah. So like, I am more of an introvert for sure, but I really love talking about talking out all of that stuff was fantastic, but having thinking time built in just didn't work for me. That just isn't, like, I'm going to have to do my thinking later. That just isn't going to
Yeah. All right. So in school, any memorable teachers that you think probably that you lean on now, even as you're teaching?
I think about that a lot. Like, did I have anybody like that I really wanted to emulate? And the people that I remember, my intro psych teacher, for example, and I did a master's program before my PhD program, and my advisor there was just so important in my own formation. And I think about them, but I don't necessarily do what they do. Yep. I know that they were important for me, but I do some things differently. So in what
way were those folks important? Like, was it the encouragement? Was it the kind of not giving up on you? What was it?
Yeah, well, so the intro psych teacher is Charlie Lopresto at Loyola College in Baltimore, and although it's Loyola University now, and he was that, like, the epitome of the stereotypical intro psych professor who lectures and does really cool demos, like somebody runs in and steals his bag and runs out, and then we do an eyewitness thing, right? And he was just a really engaging lecturer and did really cool demos. And I could sit in his class and listen, and then take his multiple choice tests, and I could do really well. And I was because I was fascinated, right? Yeah. So he was really, really good at that. And I think about that a lot, in that I don't think I'm a really amazing lecturer or super interesting to listen to. But I know that it's like, that's something maybe someday I will be better at, right? If I put a little more effort into it. I think a lot more about designing my courses so that everybody has a chance to learn some things, not just the people who are able to sit there and listen.
Yeah.
Right. So I do it differently, but not, because I learned fine in his class, but I know that I think I was the type of student that is, I don't know, I heard it somewhere before, maybe on your podcast, but like teacher proof, right? Like I could kind of pretty much take a class from anybody and figure out how to do okay in it.
Yep.
Even if I wasn't actually learning, I could get the grade, right? But that I know for sure that that's not true of all students. So I try to figure things out so that it's not just one way of teaching all the time. Right?
Yeah. So getting back to like when you're a junior and a senior in high school, how are you starting to think about colleges and stuff? Does that come from family, or does that come from the like high school advisors, or is your cohort?
Yeah, it was expected that we would go to college. My parents both have graduate degrees. So it was just a normal thing that we would go to college. I was in a public high school, and we didn't get a lot of advising. I had my advisor just said, "Oh, this school looks good. This school looks good. Oh, my nephew goes here."
Yep.
I went and visited the college I went to, and I applied. I got in early, and it was the only one I ever applied to.
And which one was that?
Loyola.
That was Loyola.
Baltimore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I liked Baltimore. I chose it because I liked Baltimore, and the campus was really pretty.
Yep.
That was it.
Right. Help me do the geography. How far is Delaware from Baltimore?
It's about two-ish hours.
Oh, okay. So you could go back and forth for holidays or whatever. Pretty easily. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. So, and at what point do you decide that you're going to be a psych major?
Well, I went there thinking I was going to be an elementary ed major.
Okay.
And then, that's when I signed up. I was going to be an elementary ed major. And then that summer I was doing what I did every summer, which was lifeguard and teach swimming lessons and coach swim team. And I just was thinking about it, and I realized my favorite thing to do was actually to help the kids who were really scared of getting in the water. And then I thought, maybe I should be a psychology major instead. So I decided to be a psychology major instead. Like, really no real reason other than my own thought. Like, it wasn't like anybody told me that I should do that or anything. Yeah. I just decided I should do it.
You were curious as to why, or actually it was probably the helping, right? Because then you went to eventually.
It was the helping, and it was also the one-on-one instead of the large group of children, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
But now you've, as we have large groups of somebody's children. That's who we teach now, right?
Right. And when I left the world of clinical psychology, I said, I've got all these little children at home of my own, and spending all this time with other little children and parents. First of all, it was just heartbreaking and very stressful and difficult for me to do that all day and then go home. It just wasn't for me. But also I was like, when I decided to go to teach college, I thought, I've got all these grownups that I can talk to, right? And I've got all these kids at home. And now I have my own children are now college students. So now all of the children in my life are.
Wow. How big is your family?
I have 5 kids.
You have 5 kids. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. And what's the age range?
22 to 8.
22 to 8.
To 8. Yeah. So there's two in college, one in high school, one in middle school, and one in 3rd grade.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, your house is busy. Yeah. Okay. And where are your kids going to school? Or like the college kids? Where are they going?
One is at St. Joe's in Philadelphia, and the other's at Clemson.
Okay. Yeah.
2 very different schools.
What's different about those schools?
Well, Clemson is a big R1 like this, like Mason, and a big public school, and anyway. And then St. Joe's is more like Loyola. It's a small liberal arts Jesuit college. So just very different atmospheres for sure.
Okay. So I know of Seattle University here in Seattle, a Jesuit college. I did some adjuncting for them early in my career, and I really liked I really liked just their approach to education.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Is that a Jesuit thing, do you think?
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What is it about the Jesuits were kind of the early educators from my memory of bringing education to the United States. But what is it that you liked and resonated with there?
Yeah, their whole philosophy is, care for the whole person. Right. And that plays out, at least in the Jesuit institutions that I know, they really play that out. And there's good teachers there. And then also what I've seen is, at least what I experienced at Loyola and what I've seen at, I don't know St. Joe's as well, honestly. It's my daughter's place. But my boys go to a Jesuit high school as well. And I really do think that they are very careful and intentional about how they are just considering people as human beings and with varying gifts that are all valuable. And so, I don't know, it's hard to articulate just off the top of my head, but I just like how they treat people. And, and I think that plays out in a lot of in just the way that the atmosphere at these schools is like, and the way the kids in high school or the students in general, learn to care for other people, so whatever profession they're in, I think that's an important focus.
Well, I hear that in you too, because in our previous conversations, even about OER, it pulls on something in you that I think is more than just like, I think OER is good. It's like and so many of us bring different parts of ourselves to our teaching and to our like spheres of influence. But for you, and I won't say social justice, but like a justice, something oriented, care for people sort of thing. Would you say that's kind of always underlined what you do?
Yeah, definitely. I started out, my career goal was to help children in foster care. So that was kind of my passion. And I did work in those areas in various different ways. And then I ended up teaching, and part of it was just convenience. I was an adjunct at a community college when I had a bunch of kids, right? And I just really liked it. And so I approach it the same way, though, especially the underserved or underprepared students who came to that college, and we still have a lot of underprepared students here. So I do probably emphasize that helping piece, and like, if they want to be successful, then I think they should be allowed to be successful and try to reduce barriers and, do as much as we can within limits, which realizing I need to set more limits on myself because I can't do everything right for everybody all the time. But within reason, I think that is definitely my approach, is reduce as many barriers as I possibly can so that students can actually learn. And
well, I appreciate that about you too, because and we've kind of covered it in this conversation. I think you said it earlier, like, hey, you may not consider yourself the best in the classroom, and maybe that's where you'd like to spend more of your time. But from a systems perspective, you're trying to set up systems that work for the most people, right? Or you're trying to set up systems that create or that remove barriers for folks.
Right.
Yeah. And now you are kind of in a job where you are trying to now teach the teachers to execute those systems, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I actually just got some feedback that helped so much, because sometimes I just feel like I'm tripping over myself half the time, because especially my job has gotten too big in the past, I don't know, year or so. Partly my own fault, but because I keep taking on things. But so with all of these graduate students, sometimes I just feel like I'm not quite I'm not doing what I want to do yet, right? I'm sort of still setting up some systems so that I can make my job smoother and so that I can actually do the job versus like dealing with administrative type things, right? But I got feedback from a TA who I thought was somebody who was sort of fed up with my scattered or unprepared or whatever it is that they thought of. Sometimes I feel that way when I am going into something. And they said, we really talked a lot. Me and other TAs talked a lot about this semester about how the students here are often not exactly what we were like in college, and that teaching to all students is a very different mindset than teaching only to the ones that are easy to teach.
Yeah.
And, that just really meant a lot to me that
of course
TA was able to say that to me. And also say that other people were saying this too, like they were talking to each other about it, because like that's what I want to do. A lot of them come in, a lot of grad students come in, and they were, work hard, do everything possible, always turn things in on time, never do anything late, never get a B or whatever. And a lot of them come in with this attitude of like, well, if you're not doing that, then there's something wrong with you, or you don't care, or you don't deserve it. And I'm of the mindset of like, well, if they're not doing it, something's preventing them from being able to do it. They're doing the best they can right now. And sometimes the best they can is okay. And other times we could make their path a little bit smoother so that they can actually succeed.
Yeah. You're modeling. I think what I hear in your student's voice is them saying that you're modeling like equity and inclusive kind of practices that they didn't know. And I resonate as a person who didn't know that coming into doing what I'm doing. I approach my classes much differently now than 10 years ago. And so it's so great that they have you to be able to do that. So when you made that decision to be a psych major, what were there any class? There wasn't a class where you're like, now I need to be a psych major. It was very pragmatic. It's like, oh, I guess I should do that because I would like to work one-on-one with people. I mean, seriously, when I look back at like how I made decisions in my life, I literally am just like, oh, that sounds good. I'll do it. Like and I still do things like that. Me too.
I'm just like, oh, I'll do it.
Me too. That's why we do too much work because we find too many things that.
Yeah. And that's why I can't like settle on a way of teaching my class because I keep hearing about these great ideas.
I know. And some of them have to die for us to like, we're cut out of the same cloth in some ways because either it'll be like the curiosity will capture me and I'll be like, I'm so curious about that. Or it's like, I think I can do it. So I don't even need the passion 100%. I'm like, I can do that.
I can do it.
That's what traps us though, isn't it? Yeah.
But do you ever feel like when you try all these things, then you never quite do anything? I mean, you clearly are doing lots of things really, really well, but do you try things and start things that you are then, I don't know, sometimes it feels like there's so many things that I've tried but not really followed through on all the way that sometimes clouds the things that I have done.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, I usually can bring things through. I wouldn't say by choice. I think that this is like an inner like guilt thing or whatever, that it's not a healthy thing by any means. Like if I get myself into this, I think it looks better to others. I think that I can finish tasks. But I'm also not a perfectionist. I'm a good enougher.
Yeah.
So it's like 80% is good enough for me. If there are people out there who love that 20%, they can, finish it.
Yeah.
So
well, and I've actually I think I'm not a perfectionist either. I used to think I was, but I really don't think I am. And I probably do finish everything I start, but I start too many things all at once. So I generally always feel like I have too many unfinished things. So yeah. I'm learning, I'm 50 years old and I'm learning.
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm always learning. That's the thing. I feel like and if you ever stop being curious and wanting to try new things, that's when you stop learning. So I feel like there's such a big world to learn. There's so many things that I always have to be open to the possibility of more or better or different.
Yeah.
And so So
I'm finding myself at this stage in my career, I think we're kind of close, is like feeling the need to start to really like prioritize a couple things instead of many things. And I think that when you get to this kind of mid-career place, you start to realize what your strengths and expertise are, like where you are unique or different, or what you uniquely contribute to Division 2, for example, right? And I think, I really truly believe that they do have they just need to figure out what that unique contribution is. But we spend so much time trying to be kind of good at everything, or we kind of never develop those expertise, or we never realize them because we're too busy doing everything, anyway.
Right. Yeah. And that's true. Cause that's where, I feel like there's, I had this feeling when I first started teaching, like I had to do like triple time because I had a big gap. I was home with kids for a long time. And so I was older when I started, and I felt like I had to go like, so fast. And it was like I gobbled up everything I possibly could to figure out how to teach. Right. And then figure out how to like connect and make all the networks and all the, do all the things, right. And get to know people at STP. And then I see other people that are my same age, but are at much further along places in their career. And that's where I just have to not compare, right. That's not even something I can compare. But I am at the point where I definitely need to, I have already stopped sort of trying to gobble everything up all the time. I do feel like I've at least caught up with myself enough that I can try to settle and I can be more discerning about what I'm actually doing, so that what I am doing, I can do well. Yeah.
It's so interesting. We have our own, and I think everybody does, but I think we have our perceived handicaps, which are like for me, I don't have a PhD. I've got a master's degree, and I was a first generation college student. And I can list, these are the things that they come up a little bit every once in a while now. And for you, it's like, I was raising kids while everybody was starting. And what these things can, I think, haunt us a little bit. And yet the perception from the outside is, where did this Alison Melley come from? Like, this person is doing all this cool stuff, right? And so anyway, I think that's sort of kind of
there's
where,
always a little of that. There's always going to be some of that. Well, and I also think sometimes the benefit of where I am is that I literally, that whole like early career period kind of didn't exist, because
that's right.
I have not been worried about like doing the right thing or not pissing somebody off or, doing all that stuff. So it's just been kind of like, I'm fine with asking for something to change or advocating for people and speaking up. And I'm like, I don't have time for this early career stuff where I have to like not worry about stepping on people's shoes or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, but
yeah. Well, okay. So we're close to being out of time, but I think this is a really helpful conversation for us to kind of have for people. There are going to be people out there who really resonate with this. Now let's just do the last bit, kind of fast forward. So I'm kind of getting the idea that the George Mason job was after you were an adjunct at the community college level. Was this your first kind of full-time faculty job? And is it a tenure track job?
Nope.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
There's a track, and hopefully someday there will be something like tenure attached at the end of it. I'm at the assistant professor level right now that should be promoted in the next few months to associate.
Okay.
And then, but it's term. So there's no expectation of research. It's all teaching. Yeah.
Okay. And did you, when you came to this institution, is that when you saw this particular job, were you like, oh my goodness, I get to just teach? Or was it, did you see yourself doing research and doing some other things?
It's funny. I really like research, but I really like consuming it and communicating it versus the slog of designing IRB, collecting data. Kind of been there, done that, and it's not how I really want to spend my time. As much as I'd like to do more SOTL, I'm hoping people can help me with some of that, but I don't feel as competent as I could to do.
Did you do the SOTL workshop?
I did, but that's one of those things I haven't quite followed through with. So, I collect data all the time, like in my classes. I haven't done anything with it all.
And you did it this year in 2022?
No, I did it.
Oh, I see.
I did it online, like one of the pandemic years. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so no, I was part-time at Montgomery College in Maryland, and there were full-time jobs there, but I did not get those jobs. And that was 10 minutes from my house.
Oh.
And this job came along, and it felt like it was written for me. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, I can teach. It was, I need a full-time job. My first child is going to college, and I also need to go full-time to college. And but it's actually such a good fit. It's a really good fit. So it's funny because they were like, you know how to teach, you know all about teaching, you're an expert. And I was like, did not feel at all like an expert coming from Montgomery College, where the emphasis is on teaching, and then coming here. It was just a very different atmosphere, but it was fun. It was, it was good.
How did your community college experience kind of set you up for this job?
Oh, very much set me up. I felt like I didn't belong there, honestly. Like it's such an incredibly diverse, many years it's rated the most diverse community college in the nation. And I didn't have a whole lot of experience with ethnic diversity. And so that was a struggle for me to figure out how to, and even not even just ethnic, but academic, intellectual, lots of different, it was just a very different population that I was used to. But that was a challenge to me. I said, oh, well, I got to figure out how to do this. Like whenever I try to do something and I don't know how to do it, I have to figure out how, right? And so SDP really helped me to figure out how to do that. And then at Montgomery College, the professional development offerings there were very, very good and all free. So I just did everything I possibly could. A couple of fellowships. I did the Open Pedagogy Fellowship there that was talked about at ACT, and I did a Smithsonian Fellowship. I did all sorts of stuff. And then I just kind of developed as much as I could. I took it all in, and, so I looked like an expert.
First of all, of course you did. I think you just do everything. And I think that's what we're talking about, which is great. And of course you shouldn't be able to finish everything because you do a lot. So, anyway, you've heard a few episodes of Psych Sessions, I think. So
just a few, maybe all of them, but I commute, remember?
I know. It's all making sense. Is there anything we typically like cover in an episode or have previously that you thought, I thought we'd talk about that today? Or is that about it?
Not really, because I kind of came in thinking wasn't really sure. I figured it would be one of those just a general kind of who are you and what do you do and what's your passion kind of interviews,
Yeah.
So not really, no.
Yeah. Well, I learned a whole lot about you. So much respect for what you do and doing it with 5 kids and family and later to the career. We really appreciate your contributions. I can't wait to see you in 15 days at Coast to Coast. That'll be great.
Right. Got to get that talk situated.
I'm sure you will. I was
actually just looking at all my data from this semester right before we got on here. It's really
it's impressive. Everything you do is impressive, and I appreciate it. So Thanks so much, Alison, for joining me.
Yeah,
I'm glad
thank
you
you
said yes, and I hope that you enjoyed yourself.
I did. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks.